There's that music, ladies and gentlemen, and you know that it's the screencast of Math You Should Know. It's Mr. S. Welcome to an extraordinarily hardworking Thursday afternoon. We've got some work to do today, friends, because while yesterday seemed kind of simple, today might seem a little bit more complex. Why? Because we're going to be talking about percents that are bigger than 100%, and also percents that are less than 1. We have a lot of work to do. 5 screens to get through. Let's get to it. First things first. Here's a percent. It says something happened only 0.2% of the time. I'm not sure what that would be. Hopefully it's not someone's driver's test score, but that's a super low number, a very low percent. It's asking us to change it to a decimal and a fraction, and we know how to do all of this. First things first, over here is the decimal side, over here is the percent side, and since it's saying, when I say it, I mean the problem is saying change it to a decimal, we're going to bounce this way, leaving us with 2 empty spaces to fill with 0. So really, 0.2% equals, as a decimal, 2 thousandths. Now, going way back to maybe our first lesson in this unit, let's take a look at fractions. Fraction, I think we used a say it, write it, reduce it strategy. Well, let's say this. It says 2 thousandths. Great. I'm going to reduce it. Divide both sides by 2. We have 1/500. So we could say that 0.2% is equal to 1/500th. Or if I only did something 1 out of 500 times, that's only 0.2%. Pretty low indeed. How about we flip the script on this one? Ooh, this one's a lot bigger. This one says, let's do the same thing. I'm going to change this percent to a decimal, and it says mixed number, but in my head, I'm thinking fraction. Step 1, we'll take a look at 170%, and we know that the decimal is hiding correct right there. Strategy is moving over that way or this way. Since we're changing it to a decimal, we're going to bounce, boink, boink, that way. And I'm going to rewrite the number as 1/70,000th. And you might say, Shetler, do I need that 0 on the back? No, you don't. So let's write this number, just say it, and then I'm going to write it. So I have 1/7 tenths. Even if you would have said 1/70,000ths, we could have reduced that. Against common factor of 10, which would leave me with 7 tenths. You got it. We'll never forget our whole number here. Move that over here. It would be 1/7. Moving forward, this one, we're going to still use our bounce strategy. It says, take 1/6800ths and change that to a percent. Okay. Pencil working. Good. There it is, our decimal over here's our percent. 1/6800ths. If I recall, this word percent means part of 100. I just said 6800ths. Oh, that'll help me too. I'm changing this to a percent, which means I'm going to bounce this way. Bounce. The answer is 168%. Yes, 1/6800ths does equal 168%. And boy, would I love to see that on my reading test today. A bit of a curveball, but nothing we can't hit. Of course, we know all the strategies and all the skills to change this fraction 1 and 1/4. Some people might look at that as 1 1/4 to a percent. Getting ready for a final step. I think step 1 is to change this to a decimal. 1, I'll leave alone. Remember this strategy? We're going to slide the 1 down. Yes, now it's coming to have a calculator. 1 divided by 4 is 25 hundredths. So I could say 1 1/4 or 1/4 equals 1 25 hundredths. There you go. There it is as a decimal. Now, let's change that to a percent. Which way do I have to bounce? I'm going to bounce towards the percent. Bounce, bounce, put the percent symbol, and I'm done. 1 1/4 equals 125%. And boy, oh boy, I hope I see that on my reading test today too. Ladies and gentlemen, that was a lot. Feel free to come see Mr. Shetler and talk about some of these problems. But, ladies and gentlemen, that's the math you should know.